When you bring your child out of public school and you put them in a homeschooling, you get rid of a lot of the fluff. You get rid of a lot of noise, and you really can have a lot of focus in like character building and discipling and instilling those values. I've seen the story over and over again where they move kids on and they're now in the 6th grade and they have a kindergarten reading level. How did that happen? For me, success is not like an A or like, oh, you know facts. When stuff gets hard, can we do it with a positive mindset? Can we do this lesson and move through this really? I know it's difficult, son. I know it's so hard, but it's going to feel so good when you understand because you tried really, really hard and you gave it all you've got.
So tell me about you and your family, your kids. What's that life like? Okay, can we start over? I was about to give my name. Sure, you can do that. Yeah.
Oh, so are you going to tell them that we're a brother and sister?
We are brother and sister.
Yes. This is my brother.
Yes.
We are my name's Rocky. I have 4 kids. Me and my husband have been married for 12 years. It'll be 13 years in March. We have a 10-year-old who will soon be 11 next week, actually, a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. I have 3 boys and a girl. Yeah.
Can I just say something about Marcel and your engagement?
What about our engagement?
I asked him.
What?
I just said Marcel, and I did my best to be nice and humble because me and Marcel were obviously really good friends before you got married.
Yes, you're still really good friends, right?
Well, I think he used me. I feel like he used me to get to you.
Okay, now that I have
hold on, wait.
The microphone.
Okay, go ahead.
You, if I remember clearly, and I do remember clearly, me and Marcel were both single. Okay. And you were nonstop in my ear that we would be the perfect match.
See?
You heard it here, okay?
I'm a matchmaker.
You are a matchmaker. So these nephews, these crazy nephews, that's your fault.
Daniel, you're welcome. But here's the thing about your engagement. I told Marcel before he proposed, I said, Marcel, listen, I know you don't have to. You don't have to ask me. I'm not saying that you need permission. It's fine. I said, you don't even have to tell me. I said, but friend to friend, I just want to know. Just tell me if you're going to do it. And he didn't tell you? Nope.
He forgot. Yeah, he forgets lots of things.
Now I think about it, I believe he forgot. Before I thought he was like trying to like stick it to the man, like I don't need to tell anybody. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I think that was it. But I'm super busy.
He was really nervous. Whatever. It was a big deal.
Anyway, so you got 4 kids.
I have 4 kids.
My crazy nephews and the niece.
Little kids.
And you are... And to this day, when we talk about these things, it's crazy that you've decided to homeschool.
Is it so crazy?
I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. So
what's funny is I whenever I talk about homeschooling, I'm reminded of the way we grew up and our schooling path, and it was a very alternative type of schooling, right? So we come from a place of kind of out of the box already. We weren't traditional homeschoolers, but we definitely were able to...
We didn't go to public school.
We did. I went to public school up until 4th grade.
Oh, I guess.
And then you must have been in 2nd. So we were in public school, and then we went to a private school. Okay, we were at a Christian private school, and then both of us ended up going to the charter school to be homeschooled.
Well, you and Diga excelled in the charter school. I went the opposite way.
Did you?
You don't remember? I didn't finish.
I do. I just won't talk negative about it.
Diga got valedictorian. And
he did. I forgot about that.
And I never finished.
I didn't even go to my graduation. I finished
very early.
I finished really early because I was highly motivated to finish early. I wanted to actually just make money and have my own money. So that's the reason why I homeschooled, is so that I could work, because I felt like high school was a waste of time. So we both come from, all 3 of us came from alternative type of upbringing.
If I remember when you started... Because now it's kind of a big thing. Now there's a lot of people doing it. It's all over.
It's huge.
I don't know if it's just in my algorithm.
No, it's all over. It's big.
But when you started it, if I remember, it wasn't as
mainstream. No, well, I think there was an uptick during COVID, and everybody brought their kids home, and a lot of people realized that, what the heck are their kids doing in school, and I guess a lot of people woke up, I guess you could say. I just want to preface this, and I've had this conversation with Laura and my husband, where I'm not against public school. I'm not against public school kids. I truly, genuinely believe majority of teachers mean well. Okay, I think that they're in there. I want to give the public school the benefit of the doubt that they're in it for the right reasons. Okay, but we know who pulls the strings. Yes. And we know who's ultimately in charge, because who holds the finances, right? So I'm not against public school. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer right off the bat. But
well, because oftentimes people demonize public school.
They do,
right?
and I don't. I personally know teachers who are wonderful. I personally know public school kids that are wonderful kids, and parents who send their kids to public school who are wonderful parents as well. So I'm not trying to demonize public school. I think, everybody is entitled to choose, and that's what's beautiful about where we live in America, that you have a choice.
Yeah.
So I support free choice. Now, I've chosen a different, more difficult path, but I'm not anti-public school.
When did you decide to do that? What year was that?
So I was kind of pushed into it in a way. I was trying to reminisce, and this was the year in 2017. Daniel was 4 years old. So my firstborn, he was 4 years old. And we were living in Pasadena at the time. We had just moved that May of 2017. And my son, my firstborn, who was 4, I was exploring TK options for him because he has a December birthday. So it kind of like, I wasn't able to enroll him into preschool. He was too old for preschool. He was too young for kindergarten. So I was researching what could he go to maybe once or twice a week that I can get him around other kids and get him, maybe some early education exposure and things of that nature. And I started really researching in my area, and I was coming across all these programs, but they were all Monday through Friday. And they were all from like 7:30 to 3 p.m. And there was no part-time options. And the part-time options that were available to me were very expensive. So I was kind of put in a place where like, I really started to think like, I'm not ready to send a 4-year-old to basically like
all day.
Like I think of like corporate America and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what adult likes being anywhere from those hours?
That's true.
Like who wants to be stuck somewhere for that long, even if they are being distracted with games and arts and crafts and stuff like that. I didn't think it was healthy. So right off the bat, I was like, okay, well, let me just homeschool because I found out through Facebook. So I just did my motherly duty and I went through Facebook. I joined all these mom groups. I'm like, what are you doing with your TK kids? I don't want to send them away from Monday through Friday. So they're saying, there's a homeschool charter program and this is very unique to California and a couple of other states. But in California specifically, there was charter programs where you can homeschool and you'd get a stipend. You get a certain amount of money to spend on the kids. So that's wonderful. Let's do that for TK. Yeah. And then let's see what happens with kindergarten.
So you just when you started it, you enjoyed the process of it? Did you enjoy the ability to teach? I enjoyed
the freedom to do whatever the heck we wanted to do.
I think that's when Jess and I talk about homeschooling for our kids.
Yeah.
We often say like we're going to wait till each one of them gets to middle school. And that's to me mostly because I feel like that's a time when there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of different ideologies.
Yes,
and we've decided we're going to pull them out when they get to middle school.
Right.
But a part of me too is like, man, they're there all day.
They are.
Like how boring is that?
If you look, and I've done enough research back in the day. We're talking like 2017, 18, 19, pre-pandemic, pre-pandemic. I've done that research, but there are statistics that are out there in your face where like, I don't really know how much of the time that they're spending in school is it learning time? Yeah. A lot of it is classroom management. A lot of it is just filler, like trying to just get kids, to listen and trying to, I can imagine what it is because I was a kid in school and I didn't want to be there all day either. I was so excited to get home and just, decompress and relax and, not have to ask somebody if I can use the restroom. You know what I mean? So
I hated school. I was not a good student. I was a terrible student.
Yeah.
I was like the nightmare for all my teachers.
Yeah.
That's bad.
So since 2017, we've been homeschooling. So when kindergarten came around with Daniel, I was like, I could do this. And so with each year passing and each child that I eventually enrolled into, or, I started homeschooling, I started to work a little bit less and less. So I had to pull back in those areas. I went to school to be a nurse. I was in the field nursing. I was doing home health visits for a long time. And then by the time my third son was born, I came all the way home. I quit everything and I focused on homeschooling in 2018.
So you've been doing it for a while.
I've been doing it for a while. We're in the middle of our 7th year.
Jeez.
But what's crazy is I still feel like a novice. Like I still feel like I'm learning every year something new.
A lot is changing. And you're every year Daniel gets older, you're in a new role as a teacher. You're
always learning. You are seriously always learning about your children. Your children are changing like month to month even. Like you feel like, man, like in a span of over the summer, they've changed so much. So as your child learns and as your child's growing, you're growing too. So it feels like every year I'm like, okay, like what new things are we going to face together and learn this year? It just feels like I'm always learning. I feel like the 10-year mark is coming up and I'm like, man, I still feel like, it's still exciting for me.
So what is your routine like?
So
I know it varies. I know there's a lot going
yeah.
on, but like if again, what I want to, because when I talk about these things, I think of not always the work, but the practicality of like, okay, what's my day going to look like? What, I think some people look at it as like, oh, they just sleep in till whenever they want and they get up and they start whatever and do whatever they want to do. But what is your routine like?
My priorities dictate my routine. So my priority is that my kids get a healthy amount of sleep. So I am that parent that lets them sleep in till whenever they need to. And honestly, they're all up usually before 9 o'clock.
Yeah, Owen's calling me by 9 a.m. I'm getting the FaceTime from Owen.
Yeah, he wants to know where's Lucas once he's getting out of school so we can hang out.
Yes.
So they're up and Adam, I love to savor my mornings because I am a morning person. And so in my home, we savor mornings. So they go very slowly. It's going to be breakfast eaten together as a family at the table. That's a priority for me. It's going to be getting your household chores done first thing in the morning as soon as we can, get the hard stuff out of the way. And that, with 4 kids, that can take a long time.
Yep.
Okay. And I allow myself some time to get focused and my chores done. And then around 10 or 11, we sit down for lessons. And so everybody has their list of what they need to do. And they go at it in their own pace. Sometimes stuff gets moved over to the afternoon. And we're usually done with the bulk of the main subjects by lunchtime, which is between like 12:30 or 1.
And you're working with each one individually or are you working all together? How does that look?
Sometimes it depends on the subject. Yeah. Like there's a lot that the older two, the 9-year-old and the soon to be 11-year-old can do independently. And I make myself available to them. My goal is that my kids, by the time they hit the end of middle school and beginning of high school, they're independent. Fully independent. That's my goal. I don't want to be sitting down with my 17-year-old,
Yeah.
There's so many resources out there. You really don't need to be, hovering over them like that. So that's my goal. So after lunchtime, we're pretty much freed up. So if they've done everything that's asked of them with good attitudes, then they can indulge in their recreation, which is gaming, Fortnite,
where do they get that from?
I wonder. So that stuff is earned. That's a privilege in our house. So if they do everything that they ask with good attitudes, then majority of the time it's like, okay, well, go ahead and do what you want to do. And sometimes it's gaming, sometimes it's drawing, sometimes it's going outside or whatever they want to do, building forts, acting, whatever they want to do. So, and then there's a time where the day kind of settles down and we have errands to do or there's an event to go to. And then, we do everything as a family. So they're going to the markets with me. They're going running errands with mom with me, and we just do life together. Mm-hmm. And so it's not so much of a schedule, it's a routine. And I like to get everything done by lunchtime. So after lunchtime, it's just a free for all.
See, and I think that's where and I'm coming from a dad's perspective as well.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just like, I couldn't do it. It's just so, because I have 4 kids also.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about I love being home with my kids. I love when they get home from school, we're, hanging out, playing, whatever. Yeah. Sometimes the boys, most of the time now, the boys will be in the room playing video games. But I think of it like, man, I couldn't do this all day.
There's a what's the word? When you're learning something, a learning curve, right? It's really in the discipline of a routine. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Daniel and James and Rylan and Liam are capable of reading the whiteboard that I put out and knowing what to expect and what the routine is. I don't need to be on top of them. So, for example, on this day, we have lessons, chores, lunch, then you have wrestling, and we have to go by Nana and Papa's house or whatever. I put that all on the board, and in this time, you can have your free time. And they come to me. What do I need to do? I'm like, I don't need to repeat myself over and over. Everything's on the board. So it's about structure. So once you implement that structure and you train, all it is training. It's training them over and over, day in and day out, hourly, just reminding them how the day is supposed to go, what you expect from them. And they catch on. Like Daniel pretty much does majority of things on his own. I'm on top of James a little bit more. And then I can devote more time to training Owen and Priscilla. Priscilla already knows she has her little chores to do. Yeah. And it's difficult because she's 4 and I have to be working through fits and working through attitude or whatever family dynamics and stuff like that, sibling stuff. But if you can start young and train them, and what mom says goes, because I'm the captain of that ship. And so, and make it easy for them to understand. So you can imagine that in your home, Liam and Rylan eventually will get on a routine, and they know the routine, and they're old enough now. They're 10, 11, 12 years old. They know what to expect.
Right.
You don't have to be on top of them. You make it as hard for yourself as you want to.
So what are the greatest challenges to all this?
So the greatest challenges for me in the beginning was my mindset. So I think as a new homeschooler, and this is to anybody who's homeschooling a preschooler or a high schooler, if you're a new homeschooler, there are mindsets that need to be totally broken down, and you need to rebuild that mindset about what education is, what quality of life is, what do you define as success. So, you had an alternative type of upbringing. I had a very traditional type of schooling where I went to college, I got the degree, I did all those things. I would consider both of us successful. You just took a different path than me, So you have to ask yourself those hard questions, because that's really going to dictate your choices moving forward in how you homeschool. So the most difficult parts are the unlearning that public school has taught us, that, the relearning and restructuring all those things that in your mind, in the beginning, it was man, my kids aren't catching on to certain subjects that I would hope, or certain topics or things that I would hope they would. I did when I was a kid. Yeah. And comparing them to how I grew up, or comparing them to my experience in school. And it's that's wrong. I can't hold my kids to certain standards that were made up anyway. Who said and why did they say that? So I think the mindset is the hardest part in the beginning.
Well, because most people think success is graduate high in class, not high, but
Valedictorian.
High. Valedictorian. Yes, that's success. And then go to college, get a degree.
Go to college, get a degree, the American dream.
That is the success story. But I do think a lot of people, especially in our time that we live, people are not necessarily buying into that. Because you do see now, you don't even really need a degree to get some good jobs. You just need to know what you're doing. And then you have YouTube, you have AI, you have all these different opportunities to learn. And so you're saying the hardest part is really getting over the traditional idea of what success looks like.
Exactly.
Even in the day-to-day of your kids.
Exactly.
Right? Because again, we would say, well, my kid got an A in this class, and the teacher said he's quiet and well-behaved. That's success.
Sure.
Whereas maybe there's also some success in he did something very creative today.
Absolutely.
And how do you spot those things in your kids, and how do you highlight them so that they know, hey, this is a good thing that I'm doing? I want to thank our sponsors, David Hernandez Ministries, for sponsoring this podcast. Also, all of our Bold community partners. I appreciate you guys so much. Listen, if you want to help us keep this podcast going, you could become a financial partner to the Bold podcast and join the Bold community by going to our website and signing up. Also, on our website, you can check out our merch. All of our partners get 20% off the merch store. I don't really harp on academics too much. And I've had this conversation with a lot of my friends where I feel as long as they do it well and to the best of their ability, that's my standard in the home. So your standard is effort. My standard's effort, because that's all that ultimately matters, right? How does one become a doctor? They're not just born with that knowledge. It takes effort, it takes grit, it takes perseverance, So those are the things that I highly value. It doesn't matter to me how fast you go through the curriculum. We could stay on a lesson for 1 week, one lesson in 1 week until you really understand it. That's okay with us. That's okay in homeschooling, because you create your own schedule. You don't have to size your kids up to any type of standard. You don't have to compete with the rest of the class. So you stay in the game, and they move children on. I mean, I've seen the story over and over again where they move kids on, and they're now in the 6th grade and they have a kindergarten reading level. How did that happen? How does that happen? So for me, success is not an A or facts. It's when stuff gets hard, can we do it with a positive mindset? Can we do this lesson and move through this? I know it's difficult, son. I know it's so hard, but it's going to feel so good when you understand, or when, you're able to finish this book. We have this level. It's going to feel so good when you get to that last page, because you tried really, really hard and you gave it all you've got.
That to me is like success. Like you can fail over and over, but you got to just keep getting back up. You know, you have to keep trying at this material. So it's not so my kids, like when we sit down, it's like I ask them, do it to the best of your ability, and we do it as unto the Lord. So I don't, if this lesson and it's 3 pages long and that one page takes everything out of you to do, great. Do it to your best. We'll do pages 2 and 3 later. We'll do that tomorrow. We'll do that the next day. So I'm not trying to go through a curriculum calendar just checking things off. I want to know that they understand the material, that they're confident with the material, and that they feel good about the work and effort that they put forward.
So you said, I like that you said do it unto the Lord.
Yes.
Because I think even what you're saying could be applied to life, right? Just do your best. Just try.
Yeah.
But how do you, I guess when I think about homeschool, I think there's a great opportunity for spiritual benefits for your children. Because the public school system is not going to teach them how to pray. It's not going to teach them how, maybe, but it's probably rare that there's a teacher in the public school that's saying, hey, do it unto the Lord.
Maybe in Texas.
Maybe in Texas, yes. But do it unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing this for God. And I think, what kind of spiritual impact do you feel can be made by a mother and a father when they decide to homeschool their kids instead of putting them through public school?
It's as simply as that. Do everything as unto the Lord. And I try to frame it like you don't have this big scary God like leaning over your shoulder and like you better do this right and you better pay attention to your mother. It's a heart stance, right? It's like what is the word? It's a heart posture, and that's what I emphasize in the way that they do their chores. Do it as unto the Lord, kids. Like do your best, put your best forward. Is this your best? And I ask them to be honest. Like, is this your best, James? Is this your best? No, I'm like, okay, well, let's give it your best effort, so that, anything we do, it's all integrated, right? It's not like school, church, family,
right?
It's all integrated. It's all the same thing. It's all worship. All of it is.
And I guess I never thought about that until you just said it right now. Like that is a different dynamic because I remember being young, like kind of compartmentalizing my life. I have my school friends, I got school, and then I got my church friends, and then we have the family that we barely see, but we'll go for Christmas. And it was like all these different sections of my life. Not that, I was too young to like, I'm going to live this way here. So, but I do remember that. And I think that's interesting that you said that it's like when you're always together, when you're doing this together, you are at the same time creating like one life.
Yes.
As opposed to all these different avenues of life.
The career path they all take, it's going to affect every part of their life. It's going to affect their marriage. It's going to affect their parenting. It's going to affect their choices, even, all of that. So for me, success, Dad told us, you can do anything you want. He told us that from a very young age. You can do anything you want. Just don't lose sight of the Lord. Just always go after Jesus. And I took that to heart. And I went and I got a nursing degree, and then I stopped nursing and I focused on my efforts at home and with my kids. So, and I feel like that's the kind of thing I want to present to my kids too. I want to pass that same philosophy down, or that same belief, those same values down. And you can really, really get into the nitty gritty of that when your kids are home with you.
All right. I think to me with our kids it's like, I love the effort, right? Like you said, the effort matters. I also think like the attitude.
100%.
Right? Like, okay, me and Jess are also not big on like, what grade did you get?
Exactly.
And, like we want to help them understand, but
sure.
I have a very different perspective of school.
Yeah.
But I do when we get a report like, hey, he was misbehaving. That's when I'm like, hey, we don't do that. You need to be respectful.
I think when you can bring your kids home and I feel like they're sprouts, right? So like we can nurture those values even more so when they're home with us. I'd send my kids off to classes with other teachers, with other kids. We do enrichments. We've done it the entire time we've been homeschooling. I've sent them to different schools. I've sent them to different sports. I've sent them to birthday parties, and they've been around. It's not like they're not getting influence from anywhere else. But where was I going with that?
Well, we're talking about attitude.
Attitude. Ultimately, when they're at home with me, I can help disciple that.
Yeah.
And the little sprouts I have, I'm helping them grow in a direction that's like it's for me, it's about character.
Right.
And that's my priority. It's not even like, I mean, it might sound, I'm more on the side with you now than I've ever been of like grades really don't matter. And especially in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah.
Like we need to do away with that. Testing things, like I'm so anti-testing.
Well, because it's memory, right? Not
it's
understanding.
Like, what are you actually learning? But for me, the priority, I ask myself, and I filter the way that I teach and the curriculums I choose, I filter it through, is this going to help them be critical thinkers?
Right.
Is this going to help build their character? And is this really helping them become the best version of themselves?
Yeah.
And if it's not, it's fluff. Get rid of it. I don't really care. I don't want to, I don't need it.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's what it is. When you bring your child out of public school and you put them in a homeschooling, or even you pull them out of private school where they're away all day, you get rid of a lot of the fluff. You get rid of a lot of noise, and you really can have a lot of focus in like character building and discipling and instilling those values. You can do that after school and on weekends, but this is like,
it's all day.
It's all day. Mission minded. I'm super about the mission.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's always funny because we'll get like notes and stuff from the teachers like, man, Liam is such a good kid. He's the best. Like he listens. And I look at Jess, I'm like, who? What kid is this?
Yeah.
You know, because they act, but I think Jess made a good point that when they come home, they're able to kind of just relax and they've had a busy,
You're going to see the worst versions of your kids.
But it shows me like we're doing something right. Teaching them the values of life.
Sure.
And not being so big on like, did you get this grade? Are you treating people well? Are you being respectful? Right. And I love that you're talking about how you have the opportunity. Now, anybody has that opportunity.
Sure.
Public school, private school, homeschool, you all have that opportunity. But the benefit of benefit of homeschool is you're able to be a little more focused on what you feel like would matter to that character and to them growing, like even like teaching them how to cook and stuff like that.
Exactly. People think homeschooling is okay. I get a book and I sit down and I open the book and I go through the syllabus and I go through the calendar and I check off lessons. Homeschooling is all the time. And as a matter of fact, yesterday we were at Costco. All three boys I took to Costco with me to go shopping. I gave one a list. I made one load everything and we went through all the prices together. And then we get to the checkout and the man is like, oh, you guys got a day off? And I said, no days off. We homeschool.
Yeah.
You school everywhere. So if you have that mindset as a parent, everything's a teaching moment. Maybe not everything, but most things are a teaching moment. There's an opportunity to teach at everywhere you turn. In Costco, at home, at the grandparents' house, at the birthday party, at church. We're always learning. Your children are like superhuman at this age. Their senses, they are observing. You know it when they have a certain look in their eye, they're watching you.
Yep.
They're listening. They are seeing how you do things.
Sorry, well, Rylan, whenever we're in a conversation, she'll have her iPad out, but she's like this, like watching us. We're like, what are you listening to, Rylan? That's not for you.
She's too funny.
But the kids are super observant and they're always growing. They're always learning. But even then, with all the benefits, because there's a ton of benefits to homeschool, as you can see, I still feel like there's people, me, Jess, a lot of people that look at it like, dude, like I'm busy, right? Because I even think about like your spiritual life, right? I'm able to get time into the Word, into prayer when my kids are gone, the house is quiet. I'm able to spend some time with the Lord. How do you do that? If you have the kids there all day and interruptions possible at any moment, how do you balance that?
I have to bring them into it with me. So specifically, this is how I do my mornings is I wake up before they all do. I make my coffee and I sit down and open the Word. Now, I can't guarantee that all my kids are going to be sleeping through till when I hope they wake up 8 or 9. No, some of them are up at 6:30, 7 a.m., even earlier than that. So guess who's sitting right next to me as I read? My kids are. Whoever is up early that day, they're doing it with me. I am very intentional. I try to be intentional about telling Marcel, my husband, when I need a moment. And thankfully, we've made decisions to where his work allows him to step in sometimes when he needs to. And I go away. I'm like, okay, I just need a moment to just breathe, pray. It's all about your priorities. Everybody has more time than they think. If you write out your day to day and what you're doing hour to hour, minute to minute,
You have a lot more time.
You have a lot more time than you think you do. So it's being intentional. And it's like with anything, you know, you have to be intentional and make it a priority. I feel like homeschooling really has gotten me closer to God. It's pushed me to him. It's brought me to my knees. It's put me in positions where I've been smacked in the face with the truth that I'm not strong enough. I'm not strong enough for this. But in my weakness, he is strong.
Right.
So I embrace things that make me weak. I embrace things that highlight my weakness. And it really helps to put into perspective how much I absolutely need him. Homeschooling has done that because it is hard. It is a very difficult thing to do. But I feel like it's taught me the most about God's strength and about his grace. And you have to remind yourself of that, especially with your kids when you're with them all day long. You know, you have to extend that grace to them. Yes. And it reminds you how much you need that grace.
I think, yes, having kids opens your eyes to so many things about yourself that need to be changed. Mm-hmm. And I can imagine them being home all day. Just when they're on vacation, I'm like, Lord, am I even saved? God, do I even know you, God? But I love that. I think that's such a good perspective on the opportunities. And again, I there's so many different paths to success and spiritual success and spiritual growth. And I think this is one of the many things. I mean, a lot of us are considering it. Even Jess and I, we've talked about it many times. But again, our line is like middle school, bring them in. But what do you think about the people again who need practical tips, right? Because it's like, man, that sounds great. I would love to do that, but what do I even do? How do I even start? What's the first thing I need to do?
You want a practical. We're talking practical.
Practical.
Practical is the first thing you have to do is you have to get on the same page with your spouse. If you are not in one mind and one accord about committing to this as a team, it's not going to work. And if it does get going, it's not in it for the long run. So you have to get on the same page with your spouse and come up with your why. And that is a practical thing, but your why might be spiritual. Okay, your why am I doing this, is going to be about your values. It's going to be about the spiritual importance of it. It's going to be about family values. I say freedom, faith, and family. Like that's like my why. Okay, but you're going to come with your spouse and you're going to decide what is your why, because there's going to be days where you want to jump ship, and you have to remember your why. And you're going to have to be your husband might have to remind you, or your wife might have to remind you. This is the why. We wrote it down. Look, it's right here. This is our why. This is like our North Star. This is like the reason why we're doing this. And we have to get to that together. So that's honestly a conversation everybody needs to have before and establish the why. And then it seems silly, but like you have to look, it's not silly, but you have to look up your state laws. Like you have to know.
No, that's practical.
That's practical, right? It seems kind of like common sense, but like I think people kind of like scan over that, is that, yeah, you need to know what is allowed in your state. Texas, thankfully, is a totally free state. There's no paperwork to fill out. There's nothing. They don't keep track of anything. Wow. There's no governing body. If you want to homeschool, you homeschool without government interference, 100%. It's 100% like a free state.
Wow.
So people love to come to Texas to homeschool.
Where do you go to figure that out?
You can, there's websites, which I'll send you a link after this. You could probably put it at the bottom.
We'll link them onto the description.
We're going to link them, but there are plenty of places to look. You can even just Google it, and there's the actual like government official pages have their laws. But we can, I don't know off the top of my head what it is.
We'll get the links.
We'll get the links.
Because again, if I'm saying yes, like, okay, we want to do this.
Do it legally.
Where do we start? Well, yeah, you got to do it legally. Yeah, you don't want to cause any issues. But I think those little steps, those little decisions that you make, it's hard. It's going to be difficult.
It's a commitment. It's a huge commitment. And anybody who's homeschooling, I just like, what's that one, Katniss Everdeen? What does she do?
The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I see you. I know what it's like. And it's a scary thing to do, but it's honestly the greatest decision aside from getting married and having my kids. This is the best thing that I can do for them. It's a gift to them. Okay. And I tell everybody that, like, once you've had a taste of the liberty and the freedom that homeschooling brings, I don't know if you'll ever want to go back to, like, you know, and it opens the door for just so much more. So it's like kind of, I was talking to Laura about it, and it kind of feels like the Matrix. Like you're out of the system.
Wow.
You're like, whoa, but it's super scary, right? Because now you have all this freedom. But now you're the captain. Okay. And now you're the one that has to get up every morning and decide, what is this day going to look like? So it's a massive responsibility. But I mean, what freedom? Like what can an extra 6 to 8 hours of your day, what can you make happen? I mean, you can either look at it as like, 6 to 8 hours, I got to be with my kids and entertain them. No, or you can, it's all in how you set yourself up. What can we learn? How can we connect? What can God speak to us in this 6 to 8 hours now that we have it freed up and we're not filling it with fluff? What can we hyper focus on? What do you love to do? You love to draw? Okay, let's draw. Let's figure out, let's look up stuff on YouTube. Let's go to the library, check out books. Let's focus and this is the one time, it pumps me up, okay? Because it's the one time in life where you have zero responsibilities. They don't have spouses. They don't have jobs. They don't have kids. They can hyper focus on those things that they love. And that's like my prayer, is that my children in their youth discover what they love and they just go for it. They have the freedom to go for it. And, God willing, we have all the finances to back them, right? So it's just such a huge opportunity to just be like, I'm out of the system. I woke up, I'm out of the matrix. I'm like, it's scary, but the opportunities, endless, boundless. You can do whatever you want.
I'm convinced. I'll do it.
Let's go.
No, but I do want to end on that, because I think that is it's a great note to end on. I think that's very, very compelling for sure. And I'm not sitting here thinking well, I'm going to debate against this or anything. It was just, but I think hearing that perspective, you don't ever think about that.
Sure.
And I think it's very encouraging for people who are even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And there's probably some kids watching please, Mom, watch this video. Share it. If you want to go to homeschool, share it with your parents.
Yeah.
But thanks, Rock, for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What we're going to do, we're going to put her Instagram in the description. If you have questions, send them her way. And I know she's very passionate about helping you. Yes. But thanks again, Rock.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, make sure you leave it a like and a comment below. Let us know what you think. If you like content like this, you could subscribe to our channel, turn on the notifications so that you can be notified every single time we release a podcast just like this.